And we're back again now with Heather Hartley, who has recently relocated to North Carolina. But most of us remember her most recently as the executive director of See Chicago Dance here in Chicago. But I want to throw it back. We kind of know when you left, but when you came here to Chicago, what brought you and how did you get involved with the performing arts scene?
Oh my, yeah, we're going to go back into the archives. Well, I moved to Chicago in 1992, and you and I were joking about this a little bit the other day that I was following a guy, and he was from Evanston. So he and I had been on this big whirlwind, post-college trip and backpacked and spent all our money and flew back into O'Hare and was like, okay, I guess we're staying here a while. And I fell in love with the city and started auditioning and working with a number of actually mostly theater companies. I did a lot of work with movement-based theater companies, devised theater. I was part of a theater company called Running with Scissors for a number of years. Did some choreography for Red Moon when we were doing big spectacles downtown and caught something on fire and then didn't get to do it downtown anymore. So
And there.
yeah. So many wonderful adventures early on in my career, working with theater companies and a few dance companies. I did a performance with the Dance Collective, the fabulous Margie Cole, studied with Shirley Mordine at the Dance Center, and just knew that it was such a vibrant place. I wanted to stay. So I never meant to live in Chicago for 27 years, but then I did. Yeah.
I hear that from time to time from folks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So at what point did arts administration come into the picture for you in your career?
It sort of folded in this kind of organic way. And when I was part of Running with Scissors and also doing work with Margie and other folks, I just sort of became the person who would write the press release or work on the postcard. This is before there was Facebook. Like, we barely even had an email address, right? So it was much more hands-on presence. But I started being the person who would be the go-to and getting that information done for a performance that I was going to later be in, which was a nice motivator. Then it was really funny. Back in the day, Lucia Morrow was writing for the Chicago Tribune at the time, and I had written a press release for a show we were getting ready to do, and she called me, and she's so lovely, and she was like, I just wanted to let you know, and it was at the Organic Theater, I had spelled organic wrong in the press release. And so she was like, you might want to fix that. And I was like, okay, I'm 24 and stupid. Thank you. So it wasn't always a perfect start, but I loved it. I found that I really enjoyed doing that part of the work as well.
But bless Lucia. I mean, who else would have gotten back to you?
Yeah,
say,
right.
I noticed this typo.
By the way, and it's kind of a big one.
But yes, we interviewed Lucia, and I can totally see that happening. Yeah, super helpful.
So lovely, and just genuine and warm. And let me give you a little tip. So, yeah.
And so, being a performer and choreographer too, how did that study and training and practice affect your marketing and communications? What did you learn from being a performer that helped inform those administrative jobs?
That's a great question. I think one of the things that I have come to really appreciate and try and be very empathetic toward is it's incredibly hard to describe your own work. And so, when I was the marketing director at the Dance Center of Columbia College, we'd be culling together all of this material, and it'd be for some upcoming world premiere, right? And the choreographers, rightly so, would be like, I don't know. Not always, but certainly on some occasions. And so I got pretty good at using the thesaurus to come up with other words for unknown or to be determined or exciting. But it also made me understand and appreciate that whenever an artist was hesitant, there's a reason, because they weren't quite ready or at that place to be able to describe what they were still working through and constructing and feeling. And so I think that I don't know, just gave me a little bit of patience with that. And yeah.
Yeah, and in so many of your roles, it seems like you really served as a bridge between those artists and the audience and the community, and sometimes even that first entree into work by reading the press release or seeing what was posted on See Chicago Dance. Let's talk about that a little bit, because audience is at the core of See Chicago Dance, formerly Audience Architects. In your tenure there, how did you see the Chicago dance audiences change and evolve?
Wow, it was so exciting on so many levels. I really feel like my time at See Chicago Dance was a little bit of a gift. I had the opportunity with the trust of the board to take something small and see what direction we could go in. So I got to play, and it was a little bit like choreography in the sense of, okay, we'll try this program, or, whoop, that didn't work. Okay, tweak it. We'll make an adjustment. I saw audiences really start to become what I would describe as less siloed, meaning there was greater fluidity between someone might go one weekend to Lynx Hall and then the next weekend to the glorious auditorium theater behind you. And I think some of what we tried to do at See Chicago Dance was build those bridges. So maybe if you hadn't seen flamenco, you might be willing to try it by us putting together a package. So, if you like this, try that sort of approach. So I saw audiences really start to be a little more embracing of things that they might not normally go to. And I've also seen just a tremendous amount of loyalty, sort of the flip side of that coin, that over decades, really, that people stick together and they hang together for one another. There's intense support, and it's a beautiful thing about the Chicago dance community. It really is. Yeah.
I totally agree.
Yep.
Now that you're somewhat removed, I hope you're not going to get mad at me for this question, but what are you most proud of in your time? Well, it's tough. I get it. It's tough to answer that question, but I'm asking it anyway.
I think, specifically at See Chicago Dance or in Chicago in general, or?
Either one.
Either one. I think at See Chicago Dance, a sense of resilience, that I was always really grateful to my staff and the board for being so incredibly supportive and working so dang hard. And putting up with all kinds of shenanigans from time to time, whether I was looking back at stuff last night thinking about my time at See Chicago Dance, and I had this little folder of things. And there's one thing I printed out an email. It cracked me up. The headline was, "Printer jammed, MacArthur Foundation meeting in 15 minutes." So, it's about being resilient. It's about, now what? And I think that Chicago's quality is one of resilience. And so even though we're in this incredibly weird, complex, terrifying sometimes time, Chicago will get through, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Printer jammed. Say that phrase again. It's going to be my next
Printer
dance piece.
Jammed, MacArthur Foundation meeting in 15 minutes. Great.
We've all had those days.
Yeah.
Well, your Chicago connections it hasn't been disconnected, your connection to Chicago. Tell us what you're doing now and how you're maintaining that Chicago connection.
So I am just thrilled that my husband, Phil Reynolds, and I, when we relocated to North Carolina, we're in the mountains just outside of Asheville. We kind of came here a little bit on a wing and a prayer. But we knew we had a very specific goal in mind, and we're starting to really realize that. So we have established an artist residency center called Trillium Arts. And we have had the great fortune so far, been able to do a launch of one of our programs, which is called the ACE program, the Asheville Chicago Exchange Fellowship. And it's a fellowship specifically for choreographers to come and have reflective time to work on a new work, bring a few dancers with them, and really try and both rejuvenate and just find that creative space in a beautiful natural setting. So Phil and I purchased a fixer-upper house. I was laughing earlier when I was in the green room with Lynn. She was like, "Your fireplace is beautiful." And I was like, "It is. I'm not going to turn the camera the other way because there's some mess over there." It's just been a total joy. And so we plan every fall to host 2 to 3 Chicago choreographers, bring them here for 7 to 10 days. If they want, have an immersive experience working with local artists here, which there are some exquisite dancers and artists in this area. So yeah, we want to keep the ACE Fellowship program going, and we will. So stay tuned for more on that.
Yeah, we definitely will. And besides Chicago dancers, conceptually, what else did you and Phil bring to North Carolina from Chicago in terms of ways of working or lessons learned?
Mm-hmm. It goes back to that word resilience. And, gosh, great timing. Let's start a nonprofit during a pandemic, great civil unrest, and a global financial meltdown. But we've learned the word that we keep coming back to is being nimble. And so, okay, so we have to host this event outdoors, or just having that can-do spirit. And also, and Phil has said this, and it's true, no pandemic will stop creativity. And so the ACE Fellowship choreographers, when they were here before, they were making beautiful work, and I'm so excited to see what comes of that. And I think that sense of being nimble will continue to serve us well. And I also, the other thing that I really appreciate from the Chicago community is the way that it is so supportive of one another. And so we're starting to try and build a network here that can create this support exchange between Chicago and other national artists and the local regional community here. I mean, the area has thousands of artisans. It has one of the highest per capita number of people who file as an artist on their taxes in the United States. So I'm hopeful that I can take some of that love of building community that I have for Chicago and translate that a little bit here.
Well, if anybody can do it, it's you and Phil.
Aww.
And it sounds like your community is just growing. You're not trading one for another.
Nope.
Yeah.
We will never lose sight or touch with Chicago. Love that town.
Well, and Chicago loves you, and we miss you, but so glad to have you involved in this. I wish you and Phil all the best. And yes, let's definitely stay in touch and continue the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this today. It feels really good to connect with people. We're all still out here. Yay.
Yes,
Thank you.
That's true. You're welcome, and thanks.